Good day, folks. Welcome to week 4, summer 2021 financial statement analysis. We're moving pretty fast through the semester. A couple of things to keep you focused. The first is that we will have a quiz on Monday, June 21st, modules 3 and 5 exclusively. Application project 2 is due June 18th, and then current events presentation. So this is what you should be preparing for as you plan your week and into next week. Quiz 2 will be available between 12:01 a.m. and 11:59 p.m. on June 21st, 2021. That's next Monday. So that once you start, you must finish. I will try again to make it available earlier for you. You should allow again 2 to 3 hours for the quiz. It's going to cover modules 3 and 5, which is going to talk about accounting consideration and IFRS. There's going to be a mix of multiple choice and short answer, much like the last time. Show all your work. If there's a work question, just show it. It's easier to follow it. Labeling and formatting is important to be able to see what it is. Don't just put numbers down. And then again, consider the depth of response relative to the points that are there. Avoid generalities, definitions, and platitudes. Okay? I know the definition. For you to write the definition for me doesn't help me. And it doesn't let me assess what you have learned. And that's the purpose of a quiz, is what did you learn? Not what did you memorize, but what did you learn and what can you apply? Okay? So that's quiz 2. Available June 21st. The project. Incorporate project 1 and address comments that I made. Project 2 is due no later than June 18th at 11:59 p.m. Connect the pieces. Don't forget about organization and flow of information. So when you're talking about revenue, have everything with revenue together. Okay? Think about it as telling a story. Okay? Not this is project 1 and then just slap project 2 on. Don't do that. Put it together. Integrate it. Don't give me definitions again. What does it say? What does it mean? What does it matter? It's what does it matter? Mean and matter are what's important here. Watch the video before starting. It will really help you. Module 4 needs to be completed before you start the project. So make sure you get through Module 4 before you start it. It's worth 18 points or 18% of your grade. Allow 10 to 15 hours to do it. It's not something you can start on June 18th at 8 o'clock and hope to get it done, because that'll come through. Do voiceover or video. It is needed. It helps you explain what it is you're talking about. Then we have applying FSA in real time. We've done a number of them already, but the purpose again is to help you understand how what we're talking about is applied in the real world today, summer 22. What businesses are facing. Okay, there's 2 components to this. The first one is your article review and presentation. Participation in presentations real time. So what's the process again? Everybody now has an article. Okay, so you and your partner should be reviewing the article. Prepare a 10 to 15 minute presentation discussion. You should be ready for that, but we're going to talk about it, and we can keep going as long as we're learning. We're going to ask questions, go deeper. So be prepared. What's the article saying? What are the key issues or points? How will it impact FSA? How will it change the way things are done? How will it impact you? Use PowerPoint, Prezi, or whatever you would like to do. If you have not yet scheduled a date, please send me a couple of dates so we can get this done as soon as possible. Okay? So let me know. Give me a couple dates and times. We're flexible as to days of the week and times, all of that. You need to participate in 4 other presentations for this class. Okay? So I keep coming back. You're going to hear me say that. Say mean, matter. What's it? Summary. Then mean. Interpret it. And then matter. What are the implications? Why are we doing it? What does it matter about that? Think about that when you're doing your presentation, but also when you're doing your project. This week so far, there are 7 scheduled. And what I've done is identified those that are OB or finance. You're welcome to attend the OB ones because I think you're going to see a lot of connections between them. But from this week we got Ben and Rebecca to discuss how Microsoft's Chief Accessibility Officer does her job. Central banks jumping into climate change fray. Meat prices rise. Good moods. ESG bonds. Requiring vaccines in the workforce, an interesting topic. And then rising wages. And you click here to join the event. So that's the key thing. Just to share, we had a couple of presentations last week, and one of them was about taking breaks. I've actually posted that one in Canvas for you to look at. But I think there's a difference culturally. And here's just a little thing. European out of office message. I'm away camping for the summer. Please email back in September. Where the American out of office is, I've left the office for 2 hours to undergo kidney surgery, but you can reach me on my cell anytime. We have that hard part as Americans of breaking away, of taking a break. And that has been complicated by COVID. So go ahead and take a look at that discussion that we had. It was actually pretty good. What I want to do now is talk about some of the things that are happening on a very general sense that I think is important for us to understand what's going on because of the implications on how a company is managed, which has the impact on its financial affairs. This is an interesting one, is that remote work could double permanently, okay? And this was pre-COVID. 78.8% of firms surveyed said they don't see remote work in the future. But look at what's happened between them. Fully remote went from 12 to 22, partial went 8.9 to 14.6. So this has implications from the finance perspective. There's the cost, okay? There's the data security of doing that. There is, how do you manage a remote or partially remote workforce? So these are behavioral issues that have to be addressed. What a company does, how do they implement and build strategy? So that's sort of the key thing, that this is a fundamental change that will impact companies. And I think it'll be interesting to watch, but keep that in mind as we move forward. We also had the Consumer Price Index came out a day or so ago, and what we've seen is that on a year-on-year, we've seen an increase of 5% in cost, the CPI overall. Now, when we go back and look at it, we can see it wasn't as high as it was back in 2008, but it dropped way back down. But we're looking at 5%. Now, that's a pretty big increase. The Fed's goal is 2%, but they're letting the economy run at 5%. Some people say it's transitory, meaning that all the stimulus that went in is causing this to happen and will revert to a more normal rate. Now, I think you got to look at this within the context of who's impacted most by a 5% increase. And it's generally those of low to mid income because they spend more of the money they earn. So if you make $50,000, you're going to spend just about all of it. You're not going to save that much. But if you make $250,000, your savings rate is much higher. So, and you have more funds to draw from than does somebody at 50. Now, let's look at this 5%. I think it's important to look at this within the context of history. And this goes back to 1915, well over 100 years. And what you can see is that we've really been in a fairly stable range, if you will, going here probably from 1990 on. We've seen ups and downs. This was, last time it was 5, just the Great Recession. And then as we entered into the recession, it dropped. Same thing here as the economy slowed. And this was COVID. And now we're recovering from that. But if you go back and you see, we've had times back in 1979 where we had 15% inflation. We were getting 10% raises back then. That sounded like an awful lot of, whoa, things were going real crazy. But this is when you see the history right after, in the 20s, the roaring 20s, we were looking at 24% inflation. So this is whenever they see these bars, right? This is recession. So what you have tended to see is in a recession we drop off and we have deflation and not inflation. And the question then becomes, what drives what? Does the level of inflation get so high that it has to drop back down? And that's what we've seen here. We've seen it here, 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 especially here. So this is just to keep it within the historical context. So it's pretty stable, and what everybody will be looking for is that. So that's inflation. So we talked about the change due to COVID and remote work. We talked about inflation. Let's now go back and look at people. And since 2010, the raw number of the population between 25 and 54 years old has remained the same. But if we go back to 1970, it was growing every year, which means that there was a market for jobs. So this age cohort remained about the same. Okay, there's no growth, and this is your prime workforce. So it's hard to grow an economy when you don't have the volume of workers. And if you look, the change in labor force participation rate for people 25 to 54 since January 20, you can see that more women left the workforce and men left the workforce. But we're looking at, this goes from the start of the pandemic. At the low, it was down 3.5, but we're still down a lot of people. So if we're down a lot of people and this number is flat in total and the participation rate goes down, that means there's less workers available. And I thought I'd throw this in just for fun, and I don't think it's any surprise, is that if you take people and you break them into high wage, middle wage, low wage, what you find is if 100 is January of 19 and we see we're going along there, everybody's pretty much holding their own, and here's COVID. But those in the low income have dropped off much more so than those in middle wage and high wage earners at 98%. So the job growth is really happening more for those that are in the high wage group. The good news is the job openings in the country right now, and just about 9,286 open jobs. The survey said that there was going to be 8,002, so that's a surprise. But take a look at how many openings they are. There's a lot of job openings. But when you see that population, 24 to 54, prime working age is staying the same, there's not going to be enough. And that's what's leading to the inflation. Okay? So I went through this just to give you a sense of some of the key things that have happened in the past week that really stand out from whether this is finance or OB. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to reach out. And I look forward to our discussions this week, so have a great week.